Welcome to the Reframing Art Care podcast. I am your host, Dr. Maria Sampoulos. Today's guest is Ada No. Welcome, Ada, to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have female optometrists that are doing great things in our industry and doing different things. So for those of you that do not know her, she graduated from University of Pittsburgh and then Pennsylvania College of Optometry. After 8 years in private practice, she opened a dry eye specialty in Little Rock, Arkansas, and exclusively dry eye in the state. And she splits her time between the dry eye clinic there and then a private practice in Texas.
Yes, so that's an interesting pivots that have happened, which I feel like is the whole story of my past 4 years, right? But I think it's actually a beautiful thing. Sometimes you don't know where your pivots are leading you or why it's happening, but there's usually a bigger picture.
Yeah,
so yeah, I actually practiced outside of the Philadelphia area for those 8 years. And I was in every location possible. I was in MD OD, OD only, did tons of fill-in at all kinds of places. And I just got super burned out from optometry. I think another big thing that's relevant for most new grads now is the heaviness of our student loan debt. So, I'm a daughter of immigrants, so we didn't have loads of money. So I had lots of student loan debt and I just wanted to work hard to pay it off. So I was working like crazy, which then inevitably led to my burnout. So yeah, we relocated to Little Rock, Arkansas because my younger sister had moved there. And I kind of was doing nursing home optometry, trying to figure out what do I want to do. But I actually had thought about leaving optometry completely, which at this point in my life, I'm my life would be so different had I just left. And then I had this crazy idea. I was thinking about it in Philly because I'm hey, the only part that I really enjoy about optometry right now is the dry eye aspect. So I was well, let me try to open this thing. Worst case, it fails, right? And then I go back to doing what I was doing.
Yeah. So why I know burnout at that, but how did you have, the guts sometimes just to do that, right? I mean, we're taught glasses, routine exams, you have to do it. That's our bread and butter. And then 8 years, I mean, it's not even 20 years out, how did you have, the courage to do that?
That's kind of you to frame it that way, Maria. I honestly don't think that it was courage. I think it came from desperation. I just was I can't do this. And I really didn't know if I could do it, but I was well, I just have to try. And I wish it was courage, but that's really not what it was. It was just I can't live this every day for the next 20 years.
No, so that's great.
Yeah. And now looking back, I'm wow, you were bold,
No, that's right. You are. You're bold. I mean, that's why I wanted to have you on the podcast to kind of inspire other people in our industry to take those steps. I think we kind of doubt ourselves, but I think it's kind of that aspect in your life where you feel this, you don't want to do this anymore. You get to a point where you're I never want to feel like this again. So I'm going to work so hard and I'm just going to make it work. I mean, it happened to me 15, 20 years ago. I was I do not want to be in this position ever again. So I'm going to work so hard and I'm never going to be in that position again. It's kind of like that person that was I was so poor, I had no money to eat or whatever. And I'll never do that again. You hear those stories and it's, what is that motivating factor that gets you there? And optometry, I mean, we do well, right? We do have big loans and things like that, but what is that motivating factor to be I'm just going to have to pivot and innovate and do that. And so for you, it's great that you've done it and you've been successful in it. Let's talk about that. Well, when did you start making some income from that?
Oh, good question. It's funny to me because other people will say oh, and you're doing it successfully. And I'm well, what does success mean? Is it that it's open, that I haven't closed? Yes, absolutely. Is it where I want it to be in terms of my take home income right now? Is it the same as if I was employed somewhere? No, it's not. When did I start paying myself? Probably 6 to 8 months in, but it was slow. And I'm the business owner. Everything else gets paid. Everyone else gets paid. And I kind of get what's left. So that part I would like to grow more, but I am happy. So like I have a joke that I'm poor and happy. I'm not poor, but I'm so happy to be at my clinic, like that it's not all about the money for me. It's so fulfilling. Like this is corny, but like I truly feel like it's my life's purpose when I'm in there, like to connect with my patients, take care of them, especially in a rural state like Arkansas, right? Like it's just the care is just not as readily available. So I just feel like there was a higher power who put all this stuff together. Like, why did I move to Little Rock and why did I open this crazy practice? But it really was the perfect place for it to grow.
Yeah. A lot of times, everyone's success is measured differently.
That's right.
And again, I always say to people, like, I do stuff, I'll volunteer, mentor some doctors, and I want to do it, right? I like to do it. You're not getting anything out of it. It's more fulfilling for me to see, but success is for me was more like freedom. I can do whatever I want when I want. Like, so that was kind of like very nice for me. And then the income will come with the passion. If you do well and take care of your patients, and the specialty is there, right? So, and it takes time to learn all these stuff to be a dry eye specialty, right? How did you learn all this stuff? Because a lot of doctors are nervous, like, where do I even start?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different routes that people can go to. I think just by nature of my personality, I've always just been someone who kind of like jumps in and I'm like, well, we'll figure it out. And now that I have this practice, it's even more so, for better or for worse. I'm like, well, I already did something crazy, so I'll just figure it out, right? So when I was in private practice, the last private practice I was at before opening my clinic, we had a little bit of dry eye specialty care. So at that time, we just had LipiFlow. That really was the only thing that was on the market. So in terms of like kind of getting my feet wet, I was lucky that I was exposed to that. But because of my own interest, like I would go to lectures, obviously, anything that was recorded online, and research, like all my off time or whatever, my downtime, what I'm doing is learning from other people who are smarter than me, piecing together what I feel like makes sense. And the biggest thing I would tell other, people who are maybe thinking about getting into dry eye or whatever it may be, is you're allowed to have your own flavor. Just because someone says that they do it this way doesn't mean that you have to agree. I don't agree with everyone or how they manage dry eye disease, right? And I think for a long time, I thought that it was very black and white, and it's not. And people are going to gravitate towards you because of how you do something. So just be confident and know that you can do it the way that you want to. We all went to school. We all have the knowledge. You know what's right or wrong for that patient, right? At least not hurting that patient, and trying different things, because you could be the one who comes up with the magic formula, right? You could be changing that patient's life because you did something a little bit maybe atypical, right?
Yeah, that's important. And there's so much information out there on dry eye. Patients sometimes know a lot more than, because they do a lot of research now. And they have different options and why do you present it and things like that. And you're right. I found that way too when I started a dry eye center. But it's not exclusive. It's within my practice.
Sure.
And, it's a mixture of things. It's, dry eye is multifaceted disease, right? Multifactorial. Like it's a lot of different things. There is no right or wrong. So it can be something that doctors can do and you still learn, right? I've been doing it for 4 or 5 years now over there, and it's still learning, right? There's so much new stuff coming out. And you can start baby steps in the office.
That's right. And it's crazy to me because people will be like, well, you didn't go to that lecture. You already know everything. And I'm like, that's 100% not true. Any dry eye lecture I attend, you're learning, again, a different flavor or how somebody else explains it or their different approach. Like I am learning in every lecture that I go to all the time. So I still, try exclusively, because that's really what I'm doing now, is go to dry eye focused CEs, things like that. But I'm still always learning.
Yeah, you always have to learn. I'm 20 years out, still learning, right? So the more we go to these conferences and learn from others, well, I'm like, oh, I really don't know that much. And
I definitely have it's crazy because I still feel imposter syndrome like all the time. Not that I don't think I know what I'm doing at all, but I'm like, oh, can I be doing this lecture? Like, do I know enough about it? But that's almost also a learning experience in itself. If you're asked to do a lecture and you're not 100% confident, like you're going to spend the time to research it and you're going to learn about it so that you can present, right? So those are all beautiful opportunities, even if you're not 100% confident off the bat.
Well, thank you so much for saying that, because a lot of women or a lot of doctors have imposter syndrome and, feel like they don't know compared to others. And it's so nice that you are a speaker in our industry. You do this and you're able to be so transparent and down to earth about it. I think the listeners would appreciate that, right? So give us a little bit about that. I mean, because sometimes I'm like, well, do I really know what I'm talking about, what I'm doing as well, and I think it's real. It happens. So give us a little bit about that and how you kind of face those things, because others definitely are facing it.
Yeah, good question. So I think I literally almost didn't make it through optometry school. And that still like sticks with me. Like I almost failed neuro. That was the class that I was not good at. Great in clinic, terrible in school part, right? The book work. So I always come from a place of you can always learn, you don't know, and it's okay to say that you don't know, right? So even sometimes when I'm lecturing, if somebody or giving a presentation, someone asks a question that I don't know the answer, I'm not going to make up the answer. I'm going to say, you know what? I don't know the answer to that question. Let me find out and I can get back to you. And I think that's just like honest and very relatable. So like my goal, when people ask me how I did it, blah, 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 is just like, I almost failed out of school. I promise you, you are smarter than I am. And if I could make it work, it's really just more like, I think being honest with yourself, working really hard, right? And then having that drive that like, whatever your why is, why do you want to do this? And knowing that it can take some time. Things are not always going to go your way, right? But my why is my purpose, right? Why do I do this? Because I really feel called to do it. So even if I have bad days, bad months, okay, we're negative, whatever, like this is what I'm doing, right? There's no alternative. I tell people this. So I have an associate who's going to be my partner that's coming in to the practice in June. And I will text her some quotes and stuff sometimes. I'm like, that phrase, like throw in the towel. I'm like, we don't even have a towel. We're not bringing the towel. There's no towel to throw in because like we are making this work, like period. And maybe that comes from me being naive also, but just seeing what I have grown and have been able to do without knowing, like I didn't have a business before. I didn't know what to do. I'm still learning, like tax things come in, all this stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Right.
No, you know what? You said neuro. I still have nightmares about neuro, and I passed. And I'm sure doctors have, about whatever optics and things like that, right? But I mean, as long as you take care of your patients and you give a standard of care. I mean, not everybody, got straight A's in optometry school. If they did, that's great. But sometimes, clinicians are being able to, connect with the patient, personality. You're easy to talk to, right? So I think it's that too. It's not just about grades. And I've noticed that too. Patients will come to me sometimes because they feel comfortable talking to me. It's easy. And you have a relationship too. I mean, and we're taking care of patients. I know you talked about this a little bit, burnout, and it's such a big topic now in eye care. Burnout's real, student loans, high costs. Sometimes you have to see a lot of patients. Reimbursements are low.
Yeah.
A lot of patients are much more difficult personality wise to deal with now than ever. Let's talk about that and how you dealt with it and how that was the major turning point in your career so far to kind of pivot.
So I just was lucky that I kind of moved at the right time in my life, I guess, like when I was really feeling that burnout. And when I moved to Arkansas, I really only worked like 2 days a week to kind of just like figure out what am I doing? I'm in a new place. I have no friends. I have no support, network, no professional network. And I still sometimes feel like I struggle with burnout now as the schedule kind of gets crazier and like, I feel sometimes that every single waking minute is doing something work related, not necessarily just my practice, but if I'm doing industry things or working on lectures or things like that, articles, it's like nonstop. So I think for me, it's like placing one thing, sometimes I'm going to be honest with you, like my day off or my day of rest will be like once every 6 weeks, right? But that one day, I'm like, that day, you are going to sleep until 10 o'clock. You do not have to get out of your bed. So I think it varies by person. I love work. I'm so fulfilled by what I do. So I don't need a ton of breaks now that I'm in the right thing. So perhaps someone who's listening could be, maybe you're just in a not wrong, but different situation that's not ideal for you. Maybe you feel burnout because you're not in the right mode of practice or you're not practicing the way that you want to or things like that.
It's also who you work with, right? Some of it doesn't matter if it's private, corporate. I've worked in a lot of different settings. I can see a lot of patients, but I have to have support. I mean, it's not, working together. I mean, and like, just like, that's not my issue, doc, your sublease here, like, just my, like something could have been handled, and then there's no reason to contact, things like that. It's like little stuff, right? And I think that's why doctors, like, over time get burnt out too. It's those little things too within staff members too. Or just like, even being a private practice, you own the practice, and you keep on telling your front desk to do something, keep doing it wrong, or you're employed at a private practice and you're not getting the support you need. They want certain things, and that's fine, but you need a little more tech support, or you need something else. It's a give and take. So I think it's those little things too that kind of put a lot of doctors over the edge sometimes. I mean, we can see a lot of patients, take care of our patients, but it's a little unnecessary things, I think, that can cause the burnout. And I know that I've experienced that.
For sure. I think, like, as a practice owner now, like, the last place that I was employed at, I learned so many lessons about being a good boss. And he totally transformed the way that I think, because before that, like, I think I was a little bit of an uglier person. Like, I was like, the staff is here to make my life easier, and that's their job. I really was in that camp, and he really challenged that about me. And I'm so grateful for that, because he was like, it is our job as much as it is their job to help them and give them a good life. And, it was this beautiful balance.
That's right.
Yeah, I needed that.
I totally agree with him. So I was working over the years, and I was said, well, I do very well. I mean, I do what they want, and they don't appreciate what I do, right? I'm like, I do more, and I appreciate it. And then I got to have my own practice, and I was like, these girls care about being here. They want to be here. They want to do well. And you got to pay them well and take care, because they generate revenue. They take things off my plate. But I'm like, I am not going to be that boss. I am not going to be that boss that they were. I don't want that. I want this to be a pleasant environment. Like, as long as we make income, pay our bills, I'm able to support my family. Optometry has been so good to me. Like, so it's an opportunity, right? But also, I was talking to an older optometrist. And she said, who's the boss? Who's the boss? And I didn't say, I'm the boss in my practice. She goes, you know who the boss in my practice is? I go, who, you? She goes, no, the patients. She goes, we are there to serve the patients. And she's right. And she's been doing it for 40 years. And she's got a great following. She takes care, and she likes her job, and the patients want to go. I mean, it's that type of environment. And, the staff works with her. She likes it. They've been there for a while, because you're serving them, taking care of patients. You still have to worry about income and paying bills, but it's that mentality, it's that mindset. And you're right. I mean, when you do that and you take care of yourself, they definitely take care of you.
For sure. Yeah.
There's a lot of things they do, and I don't want to do, and I'm so happy that they do that for me. And I was like, if there's an issue, there's a complaint, just handle it. Just handle it. I don't need to handle it. If there's, you want to give them a refund, you want to give them a discount, whatever, take care of it. I just don't need that extra, phone call that can put you over the edge for that day after you're super tired.
That's right. The other thing that I would say, burnout wise, like, for those who are maybe employed and don't have kind of control or decision making, is like, speak up. I know a lot of times, like, I feel like as a younger female who's, of Asian descent, like, people are shocked or taken aback when I speak up, not because what I say is wrong, but just because they're like, oh my gosh, she said no. Even for patients who are disrespectful to me, like, I tell them, like, hey, when we're in this room, like, we're both going to respect each other. And if we can't do that, then, like, our relationship can end, and it's the same if you're employed and you need help, or these are certain things, like, it may not change the first time, but in good conscience, so you can go to bed every day, if and when you eventually quit or get a new opportunity, like, hey, you made very resoundingly clear the things that you were not happy with, right? You're not tricking anyone. You're being a good person. You're saying the needs. But I think a lot of times, and I had this guilt when I was transitioning or pivoting, was like, you should be happy. I should be happy. Like, this is a great job. People would love to have this. And, like, this income or whatever, this quality of life, you get to be inside an office all day and blah, 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 blah. And you can still be thankful and still voice the things that you want in your life. And just because it's enough for one person or not, doesn't mean it has to be for you. Yeah, so I think, especially as a new grad, like, it's kind of scary to say, like, hey, I don't want to work until X o'clock. And maybe you have to for some time, but speak up, say what you need to say.
Now, I mean, you were, pretty, again, brave to move from Texas and go cold, super cold, like no following, nobody knows you, nothing. It's not like you worked in Texas, people know your name, and you had some kind of following. Any regrets in moving to Arkansas?
So it's the opposite. So I first lived in Arkansas in Little Rock. And then now I live in Dallas. So I go back and forth to Little Rock every other week right now. So like, that's another thing. Like, don't let people tell you what's normal or what works for you. I have a very atypical schedule and it works for me and my patients and my practice, and it's not up to anyone else. So get creative. If you're not fulfilled or happy with what you're doing, like think of what you could do. For a while, I thought about doing like travel optometry, like in Alaska, and balancing it out with all this stuff it's life experiences. That's what makes life beautiful, right?
That's nice. Yeah. You said, your schedule is a little different. And I talk to a lot of doctors and I'm like, you can have a practice, private, corporate, whatever, sublease. You don't, just because you're an owner doesn't mean you have to be there 5 days a week. You don't have to see patients 5 days a week. You can see patients 3 days a week, and do 2 admin days, or like stay home 2 days, whatever the case is. And you can have a family and have a bit, it doesn't have to be this thing that they tell you it's supposed to be.
That's right.
And there's $1 million practices, and you don't need $1 million practice. You can net more having a $500,000 practice, working lesser staff, lesser headaches, things like that. Totally. And it's what they teach you, but what they tell you, but talk to other people, not, no, not all the same. And things have changed over the years too. And you're right. You had to travel optometry, but some people can't do that. So I'm like, what is my next step after this? And I'm like, mission trips. That'd be great. My kids get a little older. I would love to do something fulfilling, and go see a different country and just take some time and patients that appreciate you for your care. Right.
For sure.
And fulfilling, cause a lot of doctors do it. They want to, and it's something you give back. And even if it's not that, maybe it's in the community, right?
Yeah.
To be able to take care of these patients. So yeah, there's a lot of different things that we can do. And sometimes it's just taking that step as well. So,
or knowing that all of us have permission to break out of the mold. If you envision something, you probably can make it happen. If you're dedicated enough and work hard enough, you probably can make it happen.
So you're super confident. I love how you take risk. I talk to you and I'm like, we're very alike. Right?
Yes.
And I love that. And I was like, she's going to be so successful in the future, more than what she is. Because she's confident. She's a hard worker. She'll do that. It's not a problem. So what is some advice that you can give young ODs?
It's funny that you say that I'm confident. I don't think that I'm not, but I think I'm just so comfortable with who I am authentically, right? Whatever that is. And so, I guess that's confidence. I don't know.
It's great because there's not a lot of authentic people. I talk to a whole bunch of people.
I guess that's just crazy to me because I'm like, what, you don't just say what you're thinking? That's all authenticity is, right? It's like speaking up and saying what you're thinking.
I guess it's some of the people, I talk to a lot of people, and I'm straightforward, but a lot of people are not. And a lot of people will just say the same thing that is whatever a company tells them, whatever a person tells them, whatever they think they need to say.
Yeah.
And they don't say it out there for whatever reason.
Interesting.
But it's been disappointing over the years too to deal with certain leadership that's not authentic, or who you think some people are and they're not.
Yes. And I think that's another balance, a tricky thing where you can be kind, right? You don't have to love everyone. You're not going to like everyone that you meet in this industry or patients wise, right? But you can still respect them. So there's definitely people that I'm like, hey, you do you, and I'll do me, and I'll say hi, and it's great, and that's okay. Maybe that's part of authenticity, that I'm not going to fake and like everyone that I see. That's just not going to happen, right? But I'm going to go with advice if I could tell my 10 years ago self, right? and I've really kind of said it, but believe in yourself, work hard, and do what you dream that you can do, right? And you may not get every single thing. I'm not everywhere that I want to be, but nobody gave me permission to do the things that I did, right? I decided that on my own. And people are like, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? I don't know. No one told me. My mom and dad didn't tell me. My husband didn't tell me. I just decided to do it. And it's turned out well, but I wish that somebody was there, like, whatever, 26-year-old Ada, like cheering me on, being like, you can do these great things. And if you want to speak and you want to lecture, like you are smart enough to do that, or not even smart enough, have the ways to make it relatable so that everyone feels inspired that they can do it. So like, that's really like my things get better, I promise. And as you find your voice, just, be yourself, speak your truth, work hard.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, sharing your story. It's refreshing to talk to someone transparent, authentic, talking about failures, but, success in your way too. And taking the leap in optometry to do what you want to do that makes you happy, and not continuing to do what other people think that you need to do and being unhappy. Because I think if we take care of patients, things will come, success will come. And we're very fortunate that we can kind of jump into different areas of optometry and still do well. And I've been fortunate too, and very happy to be able to do different things in optometry. So thank you, Ada, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.